guys, welcome back. My video today is about embellishing garments with beads. And I recently embellished my own holiday party dress that I made from scratch. I'll leave a link for the video in the description box. But while I was doing that, I did some research on how to embellish garments with beads, and there weren't really that many videos on how to kind of get started if you didn't know what you were doing and you were just kind of, you know, a total beginner. And so I thought it would be fun to do a little video of kind of the tips and tricks that I learned as I was doing this. So if you want to add beads to something you already own, or you are embellishing something like the dress that I made, you can have a quick guide on how to get started. My first tip is to design your embellishment ahead of time, before you buy all your materials. I think this is way more economical, so you don't end up buying like tons of random beads, even if they're all really cool. It helps to kind of settle on what you want the pattern to look like, if there is a pattern at all, how many embellishments you're going to do on the garment, your color scheme, the threads you're going to use, the color scheme of the threads. Think about the design of your garment, where you want to be placing your embellishments. For the holiday dress that I embellished, I kind of had an idea in my head already of what I wanted to do, but I always use Pinterest as inspiration and to get ideas, even if I already kind of have a sense of what I want to be making. So I had added a bunch of beading and embellishment ideas to a Pinterest board that I have, gathered inspiration for things that I like and designs that I liked. Designing your embellishments also kind of helps you be more confident as you're going into the project. If you kind of lay out the shapes that you want to do, you play with the colors, what colors are going to coordinate with your fabric, where are you wearing this garment to? Why are you embellishing it? How many embellishments you want to have. So once you've decided on your design, choose your beads and your thread. I used just regular Gutermann sew-all thread. I got two different colors. I got metallic silver and gold. The color scheme I chose was kind of golds and like clear iridescent beads. I was going for a star motif, and so I wanted things that were going to kind of sparkle against the dark fabric. In terms of the size and shapes of the beads, seed beads worked best for what I wanted to do, but you can of course use any kind of beads you want. Don't be afraid to Google different types of beads for embellishment or just for beading and jewelry in general. I use a lot of beads for making jewelry, so I already kind of had a sense of sizes and shapes that I wanted to use, but Google is your friend when it comes to this. If you're interested in the beads that I used for this project, the little glass tube beads, those are called Bugle Beads. Seed beads of all different sizes. I used a 6/0 size and also an 8/0 size, which is a little bit smaller. And then I also used some faceted Bicone beads, which are kind of shaped like this, like a diamond kind of. And I wanted to use those, not only because the ones that I found were iridescent and would kind of give a little bit of more sparkle and color to the embellishments, but they also, the facets make them sparkle more as well. And then I also used some cube beads, which I believe these ones are cubic zirconia. Don't quote me on that. But I found some that were clear and also different colors, so I used some straight crystal clear ones and then another one that was called champagne that kind of had this gold tone. You might also consider using a ruler if you want to do something that's like very precise and everything's spaced out really precisely. I purchased all of my beads from Etsy. Obviously, you can always find things like for crafting on Amazon or at your local craft store. I like Etsy a lot because if you search by shipping date, you can get things that are going to come quickly. You can also support smaller shops as well that way. In terms of needles, especially if you're using seed beads, you're going to need needles that can fit through the tiny little holes of the beads. Look for milliners or straw needles. These generally have, at least the straw needles definitely do. I think some of the milliners needles do. They have eyes that are the same width as the rest of the needle. So you'll be able to fit the eye and the thread through the holes of the beads really easily. You might also want to use an embroidery hoop. If you really want to stabilize the fabric well, that might be a good option. I would recommend though testing your embroidery hoop out on some scrap fabric before you put it on your garment, just because the nature of using an embroidery hoop kind of stretches the fabric, and you don't want to irreparably damage or wrinkle your garment. So just test that out first. I also found it helpful to have a couple of trays or bowls nearby. I actually used a box lid also, just to hold all of my supplies and beads as I was working and kind of not get everything everywhere. Voiceover Carolyn taking over here to show you some embellishment in action. This is a scrap of the fabric that I used for my dress. I did a little sample of some embellishments on muslin before I tried embellishing on the dress. You'll obviously need some scissors, and I've got my little tray of beads handy to show you exactly what I did for the embellishments on the dress. So this is that silver thread I used, and I'm going to pick out the same needle. You'll want to double your thread to make sure it's nice and strong. I generally measure by the length from my wrist to my elbow so that the length of thread doesn't get too unwieldy. I like to triple knot the threads at the end just to make sure they're nice and secure. I didn't actually use an embroidery hoop while I was embellishing my dress, but I'm going to use one here so that it's easier for you guys to see. Make sure it's nice and tight. And to start, make 2 very small stitches so that you can barely see them, just to make sure that the knot and the string is very secure before you start adding the beads. Check to make sure the threads aren't getting tangled on the back. And now we're ready to start adding beads. I'm going to show you one star motif, like the ones that I did on the dress. I like to start from the center of the star or whatever the motif might be and work my way out. Thread your bead on and then put the needle back in almost exactly the same place you brought it out. Pull tight, but not too tight. And it's on to the next bead. Since the holes in the beads aren't always going to be completely uniform, you'll find that sometimes, even if you have a really thin needle and thread, they won't go all the way through the bead. So just move on to another bead if that happens. You'll see that's about to happen to me right here. Yep, won't go all the way through. Don't force it, because if you do, the bead will break and then you'll get lots of little glass shards everywhere. For bugle beads, you'll want to go back into the fabric at about the same place that the end of the bead goes to, so that it lays flat. I'm going to use 4 of this particular bugle bead, so we're on to number 2. Now I'm going to move on to some seed beads. For seed beads, go back into almost exactly the same place you came out of, just like we did for the first bead. Doing some slightly smaller seed beads now. And to finish off this star, I'm gonna add some gold bugle beads to the outside on 2 sides. And now we're almost finished. Just have to secure the thread on the back of the fabric. This process is very similar to how we started the embellishment. You can do about 2 stitches, come out underneath one of the beads so that the bead will hide the extra stitch, and go back in almost the same place again. So I do that twice, and then I knot off the thread. And then snip off the excess thread, and that's it. Well, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section below, and I'll get back to you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.